Hey guys, Garrett back for Sableye the Mind Sculptor with the first of a new series. We are going to be covering the Hour of Devestation spoilers as they come out. I think this is going to be just like an every other day series. I'm going to pick my favorite spoiler for the last couple of days, and I'm just going to be talking about it and what I think it can do in the standard and modern formats. So today we are going to be talking about a great new card, Solemnity. Solemnity reads 2 and a white, enchantment. Players can't get counters, and counters can't be placed on creatures, artifacts, enchantments, or lands. So this was kind of designed obviously as a hoser for energies decks and the 1+1+ counters decks, but it can also be used to keep bad counters off of you, so think infect. And it'll also let you put 1/1/ counters on your creatures without any downside whatsoever. So first we're going to talk about the standard applications, and there were only a few really far ahead of curve creatures once you took out the -1/-1 counters. So Plague Belcher, for instance, is just a 5/4 menace for 3 with no downside and a slight upside if you have zombies. Exemplar Strength is a 4/4 for 2 with no downside, and Chandler Initiate does double duty as both just a good mana creature before turn 3 and just an ahead of curve dude after turn 3. So the big problem with these guys, of course, is that you have to play them after the Solemnity, and the Solemnity doesn't come down until turn 3, so you're playing your ahead of curve creatures after the turn that you would need to play them for them to be ahead of curve. And there are cards like Grimflayer, which are just a 4/4 for 2 with no downside on turn 2, and they have upside even in Delirium decks. So yeah, I really don't think there's very much to work with there. The only really interesting application I actually thought of for standard with this was Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice is 1 and a blue for a 0/4 creature that enters the battlefield with 4 ice counters, and whenever you play a spell, you remove an ice counter. If there are 0 ice counters on it, you flip it. The only real downside is that it only checks for the ice counters when you play the spell, so you still have to play 1 spell to flip it, but 1 spell is so much easier than 4 spells for many decks, so that's an actual possibility with this card. So Modern, of course, had many more applications. We're working with a lot more cards when we play Modern, and I'm just going to hit what I think the high points are, because there's definitely a lot more that this card does. So starting out, this could be another formal Irose in Coco. Of course, it would be the worst one because you can't hit it with Collected Company, and you can't hit it with Chord of Calling, so it really isn't a great card for that purpose. I just think it's funny because there are now 16 possible Moleras in the deck, if we count Molera, Anafenza, Vizier of Remedies, and now this. Although Molera and Vizier of Remedies are going to be the only ones that really see a lot of play, especially with this new Devoted Druid deck going around. This also keeps 1+1+ counters off of creatures, which is kind of an upside over the other ones. So you can use Undying creatures. The specific big one that I had in mind was Drelf's Messenger, which can now go infinite with any sack outlet because of its does damage, enters the battlefield effect. Just being able to kill somebody from full. Vanishing counters also fail to go on, so Reality Acid becomes a Vindicate. If you don't know, Reality Acid, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. When it leaves the permanent it's enchanted to, you destroy that permanent. But because it doesn't get its vanishing counters when it enters, it just enters, is immediately sacrificed, and whatever you put it on is sacrificed. So it's just a better Vindicate. And Chronozoa also goes infinite because when it enters with no vanishing counters, it immediately dies, and because of its ability, you get 2 copies of it. They both enter with no vanishing counters, immediately die. Because of their ability, you get 2 copies of them. The one big downside is they all die when they enter the battlefield, so in MTGO this means the token limit will not cause you to have just an army of infinite dudes, and in paper this means you've started an infinite combo which you can't stop, so you just lose, which is great. However, if you do have a finisher like Impact Tremors, for instance, which says whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, deal 1 damage to target opponent, then you just win. Age counters also don't go on cards, so this means that cumulative upkeep costs are completely negated, and you don't have to pay cumulative upkeep 1 on something that has 0 counters on it, so basically you're never playing cumulative upkeep. Therefore, Sheltering Ancient is just a 5/5 for 2 with Trample, and Survivor of the Unseen is a card I really want to be playable. It's not, but I just want more people to know about it. It's 2 and a blue, and it can tap to draw you 2 cards, and you put 1 card back on top of your library. Sadly, it has that cumulative upkeep too, which makes it so bad, and it's really not good enough to justify playing this card for. So final thing I want to talk about is Phyrexian Unlife. Phyrexian Unlife is an enchantment for 2 and a white that says, going to 0 doesn't kill you, but after you're at 0, sources just deal damage to you as if they had infect. However, with Solemnity in play, the infect counters won't go on, so you just never die. So you could mix this with some sort of protection card like Greater Oromancy, which would keep them both safe. And if you need like a way to stall for a while, you can use Molera, who will also keep the infect counters off. However, I would not count on her to stay around for very long, because once they realize she's important, they're just going to throw a single lightning bolt at her and she's out of the way. Creatures die to removal. I also thought of a really spicy win con for this deck in Reverse the Sands, which lets you swap life totals with an opponent, and you swap your 0 or sub-0 life total for their actual life total. You gain a ton of life, and they instantly die. This card specifically probably would push the deck into the so dumb it can't be played in Modern category, but it's definitely something that I'm thinking about in Commander. So now I'm going to talk about the only real deck I can see making with this, Modern Aristocrats. So this would just be like a standard Aristocrats deck. It'd be, main black with Blood Artist and Zulaport Cutthroat. If you don't know, these are both cards that drain your opponent for 1 whenever a creature you control dies. And then you'd also run Bob for card draw, because you have a pretty low curve and you're going to be gaining life back from your Zulaport Cutthroats and Blood Artists. And then you'd have white in there, which would help you play Lingering Souls, 4 bodies for 1 card, big component of the deck. Doom Traveler, 1 for 2 bodies, also very good, pretty much the best low drop in an Aristocrats deck. And then you would win with either like the standard Aristocrats playstyle of sacking out your board, or you would just go infinite with Cartel Aristocrat and then any Undying creature. Specifically for this deck, I was thinking Geralf's Messenger or Chronozoa would also be a cool way to finish the game. So, see you in a few days with whatever my favorite card is then, and peace out.